Hello friends and welcome to Shared M Smiles. I'm Alyssa and today I'm going to be doing an end of the summer beginning of fall book haul. Not because we're quite there yet, but because I am not letting myself buy any more books before that time. And so I am putting myself on a book ban, and this is the collection of books that I have gotten since the last one, but before this cutoff that I am going to be enforcing on myself. I've already tried to do it once and I've since bought 2 other books, but that's it. I'm not going to let myself buy any more. We'll see how that goes. So for the first 3 books, I actually got them from my mom, and the first one is The Evolution of Calpurnia Tate by Jacqueline Kelly. And this book I don't really know too much about. I just saw the cover and thought it was super intriguing. And so it was in my mom's pile of giveaway books because we were getting rid of some. And I picked it up and said I wanted to read it before it got given away. And so yeah, I don't know too much about it, but it looks interesting. It looks sunny, and I'll have to read it and report back to you. The next book on the list is The Land of Stories by The Wishing Spell by Chris Colfer. This is the first in the Land of Stories series. I was a big Chris Colfer fan when he was on Glee. I also really enjoyed Struck by Lightning, which he wrote and then also starred in the movie version of. So I've been seeing these books around and I've been meaning to pick one up, but I just haven't really had a chance to. And so when I saw that my mom bought one, I remember asking her right away if I could read it. And again, this was one of hers that almost got given away completely, but I asked her if I could take it, and so now it is in my possession, and I don't know too much about it, but looking at the cover and reading the back, it definitely seems like it's a magical story and very fantastical, and I'm very excited to kind of jump in and see a little bit more of the kind of author that Chris Colfer is. The next book is And the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and I actually really have to learn how to pronounce his name because he's one of my favorite authors. This is the author of The Kite Runner, which is an incredible book, but my personal favorite by him and one of my all-time favorite books is A Thousand Splendid Suns. So he is definitely one that when I found out this book was even happening, I knew I wanted to get my hands on it. And again, my mom bought it, and so I asked her about it again recently, and she said, oh yeah, you can have it. And so that is how it came into my possession. I don't know too much about it, but again, this is one of my favorite authors, so I'm super excited to jump in. The next book is probably the only other adult book in this list, and it is The Ghost Bride by Yangzi Chu, and this tells the story of Li Lan, who is a character who comes from a poor family and doesn't have much in prospects for marriage, and then she is approached by a wealthy family to be a ghost bride where she would marry their already deceased son. And this is something that is not usually done, but when it is, the idea is that it will kind of placate a restless spirit. And as she's kind of making her final decision, she gets wrapped up in the world of her other potential families' secrets and the afterlife, and there's Chinese folklore involved, and this just sounded like a super interesting book. It's been on my to-read list for years, and I am super excited to jump right in. The next section is, again, we're going into pretty much all young adult from here on out, but these are books that, as far as I know, are standalones. They may have a sequel or something like that that I am unaware of, but I think that they are standalone books, which is what I've had most of my experience with recently. And the first one is Replica by Lauren Oliver. This is an author whose name I recognized, but I wasn't really sure as from where. I know I personally haven't read anything by her, but this book seemed really interesting, and it talks about clones and cloning, and you can see it says Lyra here, and if you flip it over, it says Gemma, and that is because it's the same story but told from two different perspectives. One is from the original person, and then the other is one of the clones. There's multiple clones, and I don't know too much beyond that, but I just thought the cover was really pretty. I thought the concept was really interesting, and also in the way that the story is told, that you can either read it completely in one character's voice, or you can go back and forth with the chapter and hear it from each perspective, is really interesting, and that having it be a clone almost lends itself to that style of writing very well, and so I'm interested to jump in and see how it actually kind of plays out. The next book is one, again, that I don't know too much about, but I've seen in a lot of different places, and that is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. This book I've seen in multiple booktube videos, and I remember seeing the cover and being completely drawn into it, and reading the sleeve and not being 100% sure if it was really something that I wanted to read about, so I kind of put it down, but then I kept coming back to it. And so after a while I knew I had to pick it up, and this is actually one of the books I believe that I purchased after I told myself I was not going to purchase anymore, but I just couldn't walk past it one more time. And so that is how this book ended up in this haul and in my possession, and I am super excited to jump right in. The next book is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is a book that I have been seeing everywhere. It's been in all kinds of booktube videos. I've seen it on Goodreads. I've just seen it in all different kinds of places. And it is inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement. And I love that it is telling a story about a contemporary social issue that we are very much so dealing with right now, and I'm very interested to see how it plays out within the book. I have heard nothing but good things for the book, and so I'm super excited to jump in, because this is definitely the kind of thing that I love learning about, and so I hope that this kind of, fits right up my alley, and I can't wait to see what is within these pages. The next book is by another author whose name I unfortunately am not sure of how to pronounce, and that is This Is Where It Ends by Marie Nijkamp. And I will definitely learn how to pronounce their name out of respect for them. But this is a book about a school shooting, and again, it's another book that I've seen all over the place in different people's videos, and I have personally been wanting to buy this book for a long time. It was this one, and then We All Looked Up were actually the two for a long time that I wanted, and then I ended up buying the other one first and was kind of disappointed by it, which is why I think I kind of put off buying this one, because when I had wanted it for so long, I think my expectation was so high that when it really didn't live up to it, it was kind of a big disappointment. But I don't think that's going to be the case with this one, because I have heard so many good things about it. I heard that there's some good representation in here, and I am just really excited to finally pick this up. This is the second book that I bought after the book ban, but it was on sale, and it has been on my list for so long that I had to take advantage of it, right? Alright, the next book, I actually, when I found it, didn't know anything about it, and was drawn in by the beautiful cover, and that is The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. I recognized the name, but I wasn't 100% sure where, and then I read this underneath it, and it says author of The Girl from the Well. And I read The Girl from the Well 2 years ago, so that is why the author's name sounded familiar. But I just remember thinking that this was such a beautiful cover in a spooky way that I was drawn to it from across the bookstore and had to pick it up, and I read the inside cover, and it just sounded so interesting. So the main character lives in a world where having powers is not necessarily, unheard of, that there's lots of people who have it. However, her power is necromancy. Is that what it's? Yes, necromancy. And because of that, it is not as accepted, and she becomes like ostracized and an outcast from her society. And so she goes to study with another bone witch, because that's what they call them, they're bone witches. And she goes to study with another one and kind of learn how to control her powers and stuff. And it just sounds like a really interesting story. And even right now I'm like looking in my viewfinder because I'm just drawn to this beautiful cover. I just think it's so pretty. And the front of it says, "Let me be clear, I never intended to raise my brother from his grave." So it just sounds so intriguing, and I cannot wait to jump into this one. So the next section is all books that are either sequels or part of a series, whether it be the first book or later on, because a couple years ago, I swore off of series. I felt like I just wasn't ready to commit anymore because I committed to so many, and it was a little overwhelming to have to feel like I had to keep up. So I went like 2 years without reading any series, and I didn't want to do that anymore. There's so many that sound so interesting, and so I'm going to be jumping back in. Before I get to the series though, kind of going off of the last book, this one is also by Rin Chupeco, and it is The Suffering. Like I said, she's the author of The Girl from the Well, and this is actually the follow-up story to The Girl from the Well. And I read it 2 years ago, so I'm not they're not very clear in my mind, but I do remember the two characters, the girl from the well, and then Tark was the boy who is still living, who kind of was involved in her story and got, swept up into it. So that book was all about her story and finding out who she was and why she was acting the way she was in the afterlife. Whereas now that we have established that, I'm really interested to see what those characters do in The Suffering. This one takes place in Aokigahara, which is the sometimes referred to as the Japanese suicide forest, which is a really interesting setting to then take these characters to. And so I'm super interested to jump into that one. The next book is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, and this one I didn't even know was a series when I bought it. I just saw this cover and was like mesmerized because it's so beautiful and shiny, and so I picked it up and again read the little brief synopsis in the front, and it sounded really intriguing. It's about this character who is like a librarian, and so he's kind of a shy individual, and in this world dreams apparently have something to do with like your fate, I guess. And he is dreaming about this lost city, and he thinks that there's something wrong. He shouldn't be dreaming about this. He's not the bold type who would go out and find this lost city. However, that's exactly what he ends up doing, along with a character called the God Slayer, and it just sounds really intriguing and super interesting, and so I'm really excited to jump into this, and then also finding out that it was a series. Then there will be future books as well that I'll have to look forward to with this one. The next book was actually suggested to me by my then roommate, Arlene, who was super into this series at the time. I remember when one of the books came out, we were living together at the time, and we didn't see her for a little while because she was just reading the book, and that is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This story, I believe, is like a dystopian future where there are people with red blood and there are people with silver blood, and the people with silver blood are the elite because they have supernatural powers, and the main character in this one finds out that she has a supernatural power. However, she has red blood, so it isn't believed that it should even be possible, and in order to cover that up, the king presents her as the lost silver princess, and this just kind of follows her and the way that she's dealing with all of that, and it sounds super interesting, and so I'm super excited to jump into that. And this next book is a part of a huge series. It's its own series, and then there's spin-off series, and when I first heard about them, I was like, no, that's not my thing. I probably will never pick those up. But But then I did, and this is the book, and it is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, which is a Shadowhunters novel and is a part of the Mortal Instruments series. And actually I picked this up because when seeing all of the new books coming out, those ones sounded super interesting to me and I wanted to read them. But I figured I should start in the beginning, and so here we are, and we'll see how I feel about that. And the last one that I bought is actually a duology, because I thought to go back into series, it might be better to start with a duology, and that's the Six of Crows duology. And so it includes the Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and these are the beautiful colored pages on the other side. And I'm just super excited to jump into this one. Right off the top of my head right now, I can't even remember too much about this book. I just remember reading it and being like, yes, that sounds right up my alley. And so I'm super excited to jump into it and see where it goes from there. So that is my book haul for the end of summer, beginning of fall. I cannot wait to get into all of these, but I still have so many other books to get to, and that's why I am cutting myself off. But I really hope you enjoyed this. If you've read any of these and you have any thoughts, please feel free to share those down below. If you have any further suggestions of books that I should buy way later, based off of these, or just in general, feel free to comment those down below. Let me know what you thought of this video as a whole. If you liked it, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're curious to see future videos that I would put out, feel free to hit that subscribe button. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I love you all, and don't forget to share them smiles. Ciao for now, friends.